Let's talk about Z-ripping. First, what it is, why we want to avoid it, and also just some ways to help prevent it from happening. If you've ever seen two objects flashing and flickering when they're merged together in a world, you've probably seen an example of the Z-ripping. It's basically when two things are in the exact same space and it causes that uncomfortable flickering. There are a couple of reasons why you'd want to avoid Z-ripping. First of all, some people are photosensitive and prone to seizures, so having Z-ripping in your world could be dangerous to those people. The other reason is just that it really is uncomfortable to look at, and it can detract from your world's overall quality. So we want to just give you some tips and tricks on how to help avoid Z-ripping in your worlds. We're going to show you some examples of Z-ripping behind this door, so just one more warning, if you are a photosensitive person and are prone to seizures, please do not finish watching this video just for your safety. This might be one of the most common examples of Z-ripping that we see. Luckily, this is also one of the easiest ones to fix. Where you see these corners merged together is where it's flashing. The first thing you want to do is select the object. Again, I like to highlight first and then bring the little cursor into the object. That way I don't accidentally shift it. And then you're gonna tap the side. And remember, to see these little dots around the object, you do need to turn your magnet on. That's the bottom button on your left controller. Now I'm gonna put my little cursor into the Y here. And you're going to see that square pop up. I'm going to select that square, which does the resizing. I'm just going to drag this down till you see the edge here, and then you can see it will snap to the corner of this other object. So there's no space in between, they're still touching, but there's no longer any flashing in this corner. And then you would of course do the same thing to each object, but I'm just going to show you one more. Snap to that corner. And this is the example of the object complete, where you can see we use the snapping tool to make sure each object touches the next one, but without merging and causing that flashing. So maybe you're trying to create something with curved objects that you can't snap together easily. The example I'm using right now are my own initials, FB for FoxBandit. As you can see, I've used the half torus shape to create my letters, and you can see where two of the objects merge in each spot, there's this uncomfortable flashing, and that's that Z-ripping. When I highlight this object, you can see where these corners are. Compared to the rest, there isn't really a great place to snap for this to work, because if I drag it out, you get that space. So what you can do instead is actually just resize the thickness of the object so that it's not the same level as the one it's flashing into. To show you what I mean, I'm going to bring my little cursor into this teardrop. There you see the box, and I'm going to click it. Now to make it so I can move a little more slowly, I'm going to push my toggle forward. That's going to slow it down, and I'm just going to bring it in just enough where you can see the flashing is now gone. It's just a little bit thinner than the other object. What I like to do, of course, is try to do that on both sides, so you can see me here. That way you don't have the flashing on either side. And just to show you again, because you see this object overlaps with this one as well as the one below it. So I'm going to resize it, but it's got to be a little bit different from both of these. So I'm going to highlight this one again, and I'm going to grab that square, push it in just a little bit, and maybe for this one I'll make it a bit thinner than the bottom one, and do that on this side as well. And now you can see, at least on this side, that flashing is gone. But just for an extra tip, because these objects are so close together, you might see a little bit of that funny flickering here on the edges. So one way to avoid that is to highlight the objects. I'm going to push my toggle towards those three dots. It's going to open this little screen, and it gives you the options visible, light, and shadow collidable. The light and shadow is what's going to bring out the shadow of the objects themselves. Sometimes that is what causes that tiny bit of extra flickering between objects when they're really close together. So I'm going to turn that off. And then you can see there's a lot less high contrast here that causes that flickering. For the finished result, this is how my signature actually looks like. And you can see all the different spaces where some objects are just a little bit thinner than the other ones to help prevent that flickering. And I did turn off the light and shadow on this whole thing. Another really common example of Z-ripping is actually with text on objects. As you can see, this is flashing quite a bit, and the reason is this text itself is flush with the side of the object here. The way to avoid this is to put just a little bit of space between the text and the object. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the text by bringing the cursor in the same way with those other objects. I'm going to grab the little arrow point this time, and as you can see, I only brought it out just a little bit and suddenly that flashing stopped. And if you look from the side, you can see that there's a tiny bit of space here, but when you're standing in front of it, you can't tell. And that is one example of how to fix the Z-ripping with text. For this last example, let's go to the Clever Castle. Hey Cherry, will you pull up the portal?
No problem. Alright, here you go. Right behind you.
Awesome. Let's go.
Whee!
So for one of the things that we would recommend before you publish a world is to walk through it a couple times, or even have someone else walk through it for you. That way you or they can catch Z-ripping that you could have missed. So here's one where you can see a little bit of flashing in the chair. Furniture can be easy to miss, especially if you're duplicating a lot. I'm gonna go in build mode real quick. We're gonna highlight this leg, grab that square, and bring it down to just snap with the bottom. Another way to double check your world before publishing is to make sure you look at it from the farthest distance. You might catch some flashing that you don't normally see up close. For example, you can see our carpet. From down there, you can see it's not flashing at all. It's actually pretty good. But we also know that there's a possibility that the player will actually view it from that distance we saw earlier, like this. And because you don't want to take away from the player's experience, we would go in and try to thicken that carpet a little bit. That will reduce the flashing. And Cherry Life is going to fix it. I'm going to watch him from here and let him know if it's still flashing. Okay, it's good.
Is that good?
Yeah, perfect. We hope these tips help you with your future building. Until next time. Yeah, I didn't really try centering it. I was just trying to find the distance.
Yeah, that's... Yeah, I didn't mean to do that.
This giant just pulled the floor up from beneath me. Flashing and flickering. Careful. Now, there are a couple reasons why you want to avoid Z-rip. There are a couple of... Okay, space. Let's go to the example. Oh, sorry. Zzz, cut. Because... Okay. They're still flush. Or they're still flush. So this might be one of the most common... This is...
Would you be okay starting over again? Because I try to move this out of the way. Yeah, as long as this isn't seen in your view.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Okay,
sorry.
You're good.
Maybe you can say something like,
for this last example, let's go to the Clever Castle. Hey Cherry, will you pull up the portal? You're okay.
Let's do it. I had it ready pulled up, but then it's blocking your face.
For the...
I'm gonna cut that because no problem sounds stupid.
It could be just having an extra chair in the library.
Okay.
Except with instead of the mesh.
Whoa, standing on one leg.
Yeah, it's a magical chair. We have magical chairs in this magical world.
Maybe what I'll do is if you can see me, I'll just be like this, like I'm spying on you.
Yeah.